PD Beats here from Pop Turner, speaking to Arvin Chen about Love in Taipei, which is streaming on Paramount Plus August 10th. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's always exciting when you put together a film specifically that's based on original source material. I'm just curious for you, very popular books. What is your relationship with the original source material going into this project?
I had read the book before, way before even knowing about the movie, and that I'd be considered as a director for it. Just because, I haven't been on Loveboat, which is, again, this trip that a lot of Taiwanese American kids go on. But I do have Loveboat, so I was interested in that someone had written a book about it. So I already had read the book and, thought it was like a very fun take on Loveboat.
The big thing I kind of took from the film, obviously, is the journey component. I just wanted to know what specifically those conversations were like with Ashley, specifically, if there were any, about the fact that her character is going on this journey where she might not know what to expect specifically in certain aspects of the journey.
Yeah, when I talked to her, a lot of it was like her parents or her mom is from Taiwan, and she hadn't spent a little bit of time there, but she had never really, really been in Taiwan. She's kind of a lot like Ever. I think she's in pre-med, she's that right age, so a lot of it was like trying to feel like her journey of making this movie would be the journey of Ever in the story. And that's true of actually all the kids, with Ross, Nico, and Chelsea. They all kind of, I think, had not been to Taiwan and all, had a really, really great time going there and kind of making the movie, but also experiencing Taiwan for the first time. So a lot of what I was doing as a director was really just trying to channel like their fun and the energy that they had coming to Taiwan into, the experience of what the actual story of Loveboat was.
The coming of age component is a big one for this film as well. How important was that kind of message for you when it came to kind of putting this film together from a director perspective, making sure that kind of stood out, the slice of life coming of age component?
Right. I mean, it was huge because that's also kind of the part that I connected to the most. I had, I was also an American that grew up in the like kind of suburbs. And I moved to Asia in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. So again, like that's kind of how I came of age a little bit as well. So, even though my story was like 20 years earlier, I can identify with that. And I think, the fact that I could still identify with that 20 years later, I think that was something that I really latched onto as a director for it.
The self-reflection component was huge as well with all the characters, like you kind of said when I asked you about what the conversations were like with Ashley about the journey, because I feel like there's a lot, all the characters in this movie are going through kind of self-reflection at some capacity, figuring things out. During the pandemic, Arvin, we were doing a lot of self-reflection because we had the time to do so. So I feel like Love in Taipei becomes more relatable because of that, because we can relate more. And I'm curious if you thought about that at all. Because a lot of people were thinking a lot about a lot of those things.
No, it was weird. You mentioned the pandemic, but, we shot this movie in the height of the pandemic, but Taiwan itself at that time had almost 0 cases. Mm-hmm. So it was like a really weird thing where, we're trying to create this movie about this kid coming to Taiwan. Obviously, it's not set in the pandemic. The idea is that she could explore this whole city and the city could come alive. There's crowds everywhere. And yet, the real life version of it didn't exist at the time. So I think that was something for us, too, that for me now that looking back, it was very surreal that we were creating kind of like an escapist vision of Taipei in the middle of a pandemic. So you speak about self-reflexivity. I think about that a lot too, which is that we were creating like this, this great epic journey for this girl. And yet, these epic journeys weren't happening at the time. And I think also on like the self-reflective angle, this was something that I think Ross had said, Ross is half Asian. Yep. And I think he had never, if I remember correctly, he was telling me that he had never experienced something like this, just like he himself felt like he found his roots hanging out in Taiwan so much, being completely among Asians for like those 2 or 3 months. So I think they all went on like a semi journey, very similar to the characters in the film.
Absolutely. You as the director of this film, you get the material, which is kind of the incredible kind of original source material, the books, then you get the script and everything. I do find it interesting because being on a set, because I've been on a set before and everything, and like seeing the video village, like the playback, I just want to know from your perspective, what is that feeling like, seeing kind of everything like on script and then kind of seeing it translate to the screen? Like, will that never not be the kind of cool feeling for you specifically?
No, it's still pretty cool, and the coolest is when something happens by accident or by magic or whatever it is, which is like something unscripted happens that makes the movie better. There's always those kind of moments where it's it's scripted one way and then you realize, or sometimes it's because of like a problem you can't shoot it the way it was written, but then you realize, oh my God, this is somehow better. This is more interesting. So it's there's still kind of like a magic to that every time I see that happen. You know, the idea that like it's coming to life, but sometimes it gives you more than what you expect.
The movie's going to drop August 10th on Paramount Plus. It's in your hands and the cast hands right now, but on the 10th, it's going to be out of your hands and disseminated to the world. Do you start getting kind of used to that concept? Because you've made films before this one as well, but that's never going to be kind of like, that's always going to be kind of a weird feeling, right? Like you make this, it's your cast and crews, and then boom, it's going to be the world's movie if you think about it.
Yeah, it's actually specifically, but this one's really interesting for me because I've never made a movie that went straight to streaming, like that was designed for streaming. I've had movies where they open in theaters and eventually they end up on a streaming platform, but this is the first one where like it is a Paramount Plus movie, so it's kind of interesting. I actually kind of look forward to it. It's like, suddenly everyone can watch it because Paramount Plus all on one day. Whereas before it's like a slow roll. It's like, it goes into theaters, it goes into some countries, other countries, and then like 3 months later, Disney Plus buys it here, and then it's in this country, but not in this country.
So many steps. This one just boom, you gotta watch it on Paramount
Plus. This
Plus.
one's just like it's like one day it's just like, hey, it's on Paramount Plus now. Anyone can watch it. So.
It's very easy promoting, right, from your end. Where can I watch your new film, Arvin? Paramount Plus. But last question before we wrap up. Obviously, escapism, entertainment, self-reflection. We kind of talked about it. Anything else you hope the audience gets out of Love in Taipei when they get to watch it, Arvin, specifically, takeaway wise?
No, I was just thinking about this earlier. I really do hope, we were talking about my journey as like when I was a kid and I went to Asia for the first time, but just the idea that like, a lot of these first generation kids of immigrants, the idea is like you're only one generation removed from where your parents came from. And that you could experience that anytime, right? You can go back to that country and you never know what you're going to get out of that, which is kind of, what happens in this story. But like the idea is that, you're going to be uncomfortable at first, but at a certain point, you'll feel like, even though you grew up in America, you'll feel some kind of like, security or some kind of, something, I think. And I think that's what I hope a lot of people who watch this movie maybe can take that away from it, that like, especially, kids of recent immigrants, is that like, maybe it's time to go experience where your parents came from and see how that changes your life, because it definitely would.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. And Love in Taipei streaming August 10th on Paramount Plus. Arvin, so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.